Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we say the number one rule is don't break your employees. Your employees, just like Humpty Dumpty, once you break them, all the king's horses and all the king's men will not be able to put the blue hairs back together again. Just be gentle with the employees, for Christ's sake. Anyway, so I think this is an interesting story about the modern times we are living in, especially with employees and employers, as everybody realizes that the investment money is going to be disappearing fast, right? So for about the past decade, it extends out probably to about 15 years, to about 2010, we have been in this boom cycle for businesses and employment, where there's been so much investor money being driven into the tech industry. Nobody has really had to bother about little things like return on investment and profit loss statements and the whole nine yards. And the important thing, right? I talk about this a lot from the employee's perspective, or the employer's perspective towards the employees, where basically there are a lot of worthless employees out there, right? There are a lot of employees working at companies that are completely and utterly worthless. It's not simply that they bring no value to the company, they actually drag the value of the company down. But companies were trying to pretend that they were successful, and to pretend that they were successful, they would hire more employees, right? They would put more asses in seats. And one of the things that I warn folks is we're getting this time period where basically companies have to go back to being more efficient. We see this about every 20 years, right? During the 1980s. During the 1980s, there was the big push where basically you had investors go out, they would buy these large old companies, and then they would chop those old companies into bits, and they found that the bits of those old companies were more valuable than the company itself, right? We went through those efficiency gains during the 1980s. During the 2000s, it was a big thing, right? The young buck MBAs would come in. Basically, companies figured out that they could pay young MBAs, 2/3 of the salary of old MBAs. And the youngins basically did the job well enough, and so they found efficiency gain there, right? And now we're in the 2020s, and basically they're looking at these companies, and there's just a massive amount of bloat at these companies. These companies are bloated, and we are simply going through the efficiency cycle. Don't blame me! Eli's so mean for explaining how cycles work. Yes. Boys and girls, if you think I am mean and horrible, it is going to be a rough decade. But one of the big problems we get into too is I talk about this from the employee standpoint, right? Because the employees are just bitching and whining and crying and complaining all day long. By God, they should be able to protest their own company on the company dime. Right? It only makes sense. But one of the things that also gets left out of this conversation is the fact that the managers and the leaders in these companies basically have been propped up on this investment money for so long that they also haven't had to do their jobs, right? They have not had to do the difficult task of proper disciplinary procedures, proper auditing of staff, properly understanding things like KPIs, and making sure their teams are doing what the hell they're supposed to do, right? There's so much money coming in. Why fire a garbage employee, right? That could be a little nerve-wracking. Why not just move them into a different department? So one of the issues that we're getting to now is not only do the employees have to deal with reality, but also the employers and the bosses have to deal with reality. And oh my golly. It is funny. I just did this video talking about the Nadala with Microsoft, where the CEO of Microsoft right now is concerned about the morale of Microsoft employees. I don't understand why the morale of Microsoft employees is in the toilet. It's like, well, you literally within a 6-month period laid off 16,000 employees. You're demanding a return to office mandate where if an employee works within 50 miles of the Puget Sound office, they have to come in 50 miles. So think about that. Doing a normal commute, that is not 50 minutes away. They have to come into the office. It's 50 miles, which, around there might be a 2-hour each way commute, plus all the other stuff. And then I was like, I don't understand why our employees are so sad. Really? Really? You don't understand why your employees are so sad when you've been whipping the fuck out of them for the past 6 months. I don't know how your mommy and daddy showed you love, but that's not how you show love in the United States. But anyway, so we see that right now, right? Microsoft is all worried about the morale of Microsoft employees because Nadella has been a bastard. What I find interesting here is we now see this with AT&T, right? So Stankey, the best CEO name in the world, Stankey took over as CEO of AT&T, and he's come in and he's been telling these AT&T employees exactly how worthless they are, right? He literally needs to cut $6 billion worth of fat. You look at your paycheck and guess how many employees have to get dumped to get up to $6 billion, right? But the funny thing is, if you don't do this appropriately, and that's one of the big things to be thinking about again in this time period, and it's something to be considered for you if you are a manager, if you're running a company, right? The paradigm has shifted, right? This is not me. This is not me. This is not. It just has. It just has. We went from a pretty logical paradigm, like it or hate it, we went from a pretty logical paradigm about 10, 15 years ago to the insane paradigm we've had for the past 10 or 15 years, and we're just going back to logic, right? Turkey is about to meet ground again. Turkey and ground are about to come back together as the friends they were always meant to be. And so one of the things you need to be thinking about as a manager, as a leader, as a business owner, is how you can shift your company culture, how can you shift your managerial processes and the rest of it to basically improve efficiency and do all those things you need to do right now, but do it in such a way that does not break your employees. Right? Making them feel as if they are part of the process. Actually having conversations with people, right? Sitting there as a manager, as a leader, doing your fucking job. Right? Yeah, the blue hair bitches, the blue hair employee bitches that have fucking snot bubbles coming out of their nose, yeah, they need to shut the fuck up and actually close work orders or whatever your KPIs are there, right? They do need to do their jobs. But guess what, bucko? Guess what, little boy? It's time to put your big man pants on and do your job too, and actually start talking to your employees, talking to folks to understand what your environment looks like. To understand who you can cut, to understand why you're going to be cutting those people, to understand where you can bring in efficiencies, to understand who is already going to be leaving your company anyway, so you don't need to lay somebody else up. Hey, if we need to cut 10% of our workforce, right? Again, just putting out the question, hey, is there anybody that's already decided they want to leave for whatever reason? Maybe we can give you a few $1,000s to get your ass out the door, make you all happy, and not piss off every other employee in this company, right? Now is the time for managers and leaders to actually do their fucking job. So it's amazing, right? If you watch my videos are very much a Rorschach test of basically you find out how you look at the world based off of how you respond to my videos. Because again, I get all these employees, they're crying and bitching about, oh, you're just a capitalist pig, right? At the exact same time, during most of these videos, I'm talking about the syphilitic brains in big tech CEOs not doing their goddamn jobs, right? And it's funny, but people only focus on what they want to focus on. And one of the big things to understand here, right, is that managers, if you are in the management position, guess what? It is time to do your job appropriately. And you do not have to be a priest to your fucking employees. You do not have to be a goddamn therapist to your fucking employees. You do not have to explain to your employees how working for your company is gonna make the world a better place, because it's not. But you do need to understand what pain points they're running into. You do need to understand what they're expected to do in a day. You do need to understand if you put more work on them, is that going to make them more efficient or is that going to break them? Right? And I think that's one of the big issues that we have right now is everybody across the board in the tech industry is infected with this brain syphilis, right? All the way from the big tech executives all the way down to the junior level coders, right? There has been so much investment money that has come in. Nobody has had to do their actual jobs for the past decade. And so one of the big questions here is as the managers come in as the alpha dogs, right? Because that's a thing right now, right? Trump, woof, woof, alpha dog, right? You see that with Mark Zuckerberg as an alpha dog, and you see that with Elon Musk as an alpha dog, and everybody wants to be fucking alpha dogs, right? Even Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has like biceps nowadays, right? But here's the thing, you come into your environment with that, of I am the leader and you are the peon. Shit's just gonna go sideways, right? The entire thing is getting the ship of your organization more or less going in that direction. And for a ship to go in that direction, you do need the captain of the ship. But you also need the boiler technicians, and you also need the fucking janitors, and you also need the people to clean the clogs out of the toilet and all that kind of stuff. You're on a ship. You're on a ship for 6 months. You piss off the people that get the clogs out of your toilet, and you're gonna find out real quick about real politic power dynamics of a ship, right? But anyways, I think that's one of the curious things that's going now is what we're seeing is so many of these managers have no idea what their jobs are. They have no idea what the KPIs of their subordinates are. They have no real idea of what their teams are supposed to deliver. They have no real idea how to manage or lead people. And so that is where we're getting to this place where managers are surprised when morale goes down the toilet because they're assholes. And this is coming from AT&T, which I do find to be hilarious. With Stankey, CEO Stankey, AT&T tracked employee attendance to find freeloaders. Now it admits the system is driving workers to the brink of frustration. That's right. They decided to implement a system. Again, I believe in single panes of glass. I believe in dashboards to understand what is going on with your organization with a single glance. They decided to put all these systems in, and it's driving their employees insane. Good job, Stankey. Good job. And this is an important thing to consider, right? When I talk about these things with KPIs, I talk about things with single panes of glass, and I talk about things like with tracking employees. Actually understanding what the hell you need to track. Actually understanding why you're tracking that information and understanding how that fits into the larger dynamics of your organization. I think for a lot of managers and leaders out there, they simply don't understand. AT&T is reducing its reliance on an employee attendance tracking system, admitting to workers that it hasn't been fully accurate, right? So they added an employee tracking system that wasn't accurate. Oh, nothing. Nothing is going to make management-employee relations better than an inaccurate tracking system. And is, quote, driving people to the brink of frustration. The system known internally as presence reporting automatically tracks the hours workers spend at their assigned office. Most are required to log in at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week on site. So that, again, that's a curious thing now. It's not simply you're required to be in 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That is what it is. At least 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. In a meeting last month, Chief Marketing and Growth Officer Kellen Kinney said her division is reducing its reliance on presence tracking in response to employee concerns about the system and its accuracy. The system was originally introduced to identify employees who weren't showing up in the office. Quote, we recognize that there's things about the report that are not correct, she said, according to audio obtained by Business Insider. Quote, it is not something that I expect anybody to be looking at on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. This is also one of those interesting things with reports and making sure everybody gets reports and all that kind of stuff? Think about this. She's coming out and saying that the reports are not correct. They're going through the effort to create these reports that are not correct, and she doesn't expect anybody to look at these reports on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So they're taking all the time and energy to create incorrect reports that nobody's gonna look at. Wow, nothing gives me more confidence in management than that. Let's see. AT&T is also de-emphasizing the use of tracking system for salaried employees company-wide, a person familiar with the matter said. CEO John Stankey indicated in a memo to staffers last month that AT&T was shifting its use of behavioral data, such as presence reports. Quote, we analyze patterns of behavior from broad cohorts, he wrote, to determine if the behavior being evaluated is consistent with our stated priorities and system and employment expectations. Stankey said that an individual's data must differ significantly from their peers before their name is attached to that behavior. Quote, some may view this approach as a matter of trust, and that perspective is understandable. In several forums, I've expressed concern that past data indicated more outliers than we'd like, he said. Kinney said during the August meeting that the employee survey had lots of feedback about the presence of reports. She said the survey included critiques from workers who said they were struggling to make it to doctor's appointments without running afoul of the system, for example. And that's one big thing to be thinking about with these systems. You put these systems into place. What happens with deviation? Somebody needs to go to a doctor's appointment. Somebody needs to go to a dentist appointment. The whole 9 yards. What happens when one of your employees actually gets COVID? And this is an important thing to think about, right? Dear Mr. Stankey, what happens when one of your employees actually gets fucking COVID? Right? And the actual COVID, not the mutant COVID or the new COVID, just normal COVID, classic COVID. What happens when they get COVID? And they're sitting there like, oh, I don't want to get laid off. I don't want to get dinged for performance review, right? We're having these systems log everything we do. I'm gonna man up and come into the office. And so they come into your office of 1,000+ employees. Just gagging and coughing, blowing man snot bubbles everywhere. Is that gonna make your company more efficient? Is that gonna keep your ship going in the proper direction when God knows how many people come down with COVID? And again, when I talk about this COVID, we're not going into forced vaccination. I'm just saying getting fucking sick, right? Are your systems designed so that your employees feel comfortable getting sick and staying home? Quote, I now understand the level of anxiety that this report has created, Kinney said. Quote, I also now understand how the fact that it is inaccurate is driving people to the brink of frustration and it's creating distrust. Holy shit! Executive of the year right here. I understand how this report being inaccurate is driving people to frustration and creating distrust. Wow. Did you learn that in your community college business leadership class? This is why I say to all the people out there that want jobs, this is why I said the next few years is just gonna be funny. Like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, right? I sit here and I bitch and complain about employees a lot, but it's the entire system. It's the entire system, right? From, as I've said, from the junior fucking dev all the way to the CEOs, this shit is rotted. It's just fucking whatever, digital termite infested all the way up and down, from the fucking foundations all the way to the steeple. The fucking techno termites are everywhere. And that's one of the big issues if you want to go out there and get a job. It's why I don't have a good answer for you at this point in time, right? You go back to 2018, 2019, 2020, people were getting jobs. Fucking idiots were getting $200,000 jobs. I've seen it, right? But what I'm trying to explain to you now is that everything, I think the technical term is wonkadoodle at this point, right? It's just stupidly insane. And so you just kind of have to keep this in mind, right? One of the big things I say, it's not personal. So many people want things to be personal, right? If it's personal, then they can have agency, right? If it's personal, then they have a fight. So much of what's currently going on it just isn't personal. I mean, think about if you're an employee. Think about if you actually need to hire somebody, right? So you need to hire somebody in the global economic environment, right? We have a president right now that just craps out tariffs, right? India has a 50% tariff on it. Why? Because they buy oil from Russia, right? He's talking about 100% tariff. He's talking about 100% tariff on China again, right? I thought we already worked out the idiocy with China. Anyways, now he's talking about another 100% tariff on China. So you have that kind of stuff going on geopolitically, right? And then you have the investor world. The investors are trying to figure out where to put their money. And then you have the employees, and the employees are like losing their minds, and the bosses don't know what the fuck's going on, and the customers really aren't sure what they do or do not want to buy, and AI either is more dangerous than nuclear weapons or is just basically a worthless bubble. And then think about this. And then you're a manager. You're a manager in this fucking world, right? And then you get bombarded with 2,000 resumes. I just want you to think about that for a second. Think about being on the other side of this transaction, right? You say, I've put out 2,000 resumes and nobody's contacted me back. Think about the poor bastard on the other side. Think about the poor bastard trying to find one fucking person to do a job, and they get 2,000 resumes, and they're in this environment. And this is why I say everything right now with employment is just meh. Again, update your GitHub. Go to meetups and event, schmooze and talk with people and figure out what their pain points are and figure out what the hell they're willing to pay money for and do that kind of stuff. Because I'm just trying to explain to you just how just wackadoodle this stuff is. Like literally, AT&T is a massive tech company with God knows how many employees, valued at however many billions of dollars, and literally they implement a work tracking system, and even they know the damn thing is inaccurate. Oh, multiple employees told Business Insider that the system doesn't just log badge swipes at the entrance or exit. The presence report uses laptop network connections and mobile device location data to infer the hours an employee was at their assigned office. Which does seem weird. Why not badge in and badge out? Anyways, the tool was rolled out in response to the RTO push that began 2 years ago, and its usage ramped up as the attendance policy grew increasingly strict. So notice, the policy increases in strictness as the system to basically verify the policy has a whole bunch of defects. At the AT&T marketing and growth team meeting, Kinney said that the system helped leadership identify, quote, freeloaders who showed up for 30 minutes or 2 hours per day. Quote, there were people who badged in for 10 minutes, got themselves a cup of coffee, and then left, she said. The report was good for identifying the people who were abusing the system. We do not need this report for that purpose anymore because we took action on the people who were the free riders. AT&T did not specify how many workers have been disciplined or dismissed in connection with their presence reporting information. So basically what they're saying here is even though the system was inaccurate and had problems, we really used it to find the freeloaders. We've eliminated the freeloaders, ergo we don't have to worry about the system very much anymore. Okay, how many people were fired? How many people were freeloaders? Well, we're not going to give you that information. How many people were disciplined? Well, we can't give you that information. If you know the system is inaccurate and doesn't work properly, did you inaccurately or inappropriately fire people that you called freeloaders, but the system didn't track them properly for some reason? No comment. Anyways, let's see here. AT&T workers told Business Insider that apparent glitches in the system could also be a hassle for employees who are pulling their weight. They said that in the first few months of this year, while the 5-day RTO mandate was phasing in, their reports could be wrong by as many as several hours. In addition, briefly badging into an AT&T facility on a day off could trigger a person's daily average hours to drop below the mandatory 8 hours for the work week. right? So basically the idea, you're supposed to come in for 8 hours a day. You badge in for, let's say, 10 minutes on day number 6 because you're just coming in to check something. That brings down your average, right? So instead of 8 hours, so you go in 5 days a week for 8 hours. You have 8 hours per day. You badge in for 10 minutes on Saturday, then I don't know, you then go down to like 6, it averages out to 6.5 hours over 6 days. That's one of the things you have to worry about with tracking numbers. What the fuck are you actually tracking? If you are stupid enough that your math tracks average hours per day, that then means the person that was actually going above and beyond to verify their systems are doing what the hell they're supposed to be doing on the weekend literally now gets punished. You don't need calculus in this job. You do need basic fucking math understanding, though. Quote, it was at its worst in March and April when a worker in New Jersey told Business Insider, sometimes you step out for lunch and then it would stop counting. How dare you? You left the premises for lunch? You're just not passionate enough for AT&T. Though there were no immediate consequences for an incorrect report, employees were concerned the erroneous data could make them targets for layoffs. And this is the whole thing with the whole transparency, being as transparent as possible. If you know the CEO is trying to just eliminate as many employees as possible, it's gonna scare the shit out of the employees if these systems are not accurate. Right? Just common sense here. Another effect of the crackdown on underperformers has been the erosion of motivation from some high performers to put in extra time. Quote, the attitude has shifted, the New Jersey employee said. Quote, they only count 8 hours, so I'm just going to work 8 hours. And so there you go. There you go. They implement a tracking system that has errors. They know for a fact it has errors. It's scaring the ever-loving shit out of the employees. And that is the modern world of working at some of these companies. This is something to just be thinking about, like I say, from that management leadership standpoint. You don't have to be your employees' mommies and daddies. You don't have to be their fucking priest. You don't have to give them a reason to be on this planet. But for the love of God, actually do your job. Right? If you've got these dashboards, if you've got these reports, make sure the damn things are accurate. Have the transparency there so people actually understand what the hell is going on. Bring them into the process, right? This is part of their work. Because if not, you're going to break your employees. And if you break your I mean, as I've talked about before, malicious compliance. But malicious compliance is just the easiest thing to talk about. Fucking broken employees are a goddamn disaster. Oh, you crack one of them, and Jesus Christ, no amount of super glue is ever gonna put that Fabergé egg back together. You're gonna get something that looks egg-shaped. It's never gonna be what it was, right? And I think this is something a lot of these tech companies really have to consider, because I think a lot of them at this point in time are really just going to be breaking their best employees, the employees that wanted to go above and beyond, the employees that were there for the mission, the employees that had seen themselves being at this company for years and taking over as management or executives or whatever. And you start doing too much of this stuff, and the stress literally just breaks people to the point that now you're paying the salary for an employee that's now just kind of muddling through. How does that make a damn bit of sense? And that's one of the big things to think about, because there's this whole idea of, well, you can just replace employees, right? You can just replace employees, which is true, right? From employees out there, that is true. But it also is a little, not quite that, right? Onboarding employees, like onboarding a technical employee, a real technical employee, takes 6 months to a year. So think about it. If somebody gets paid $100,000, $200,000 a year, right? It can take up to a year for them to be fully onboarded. Between recruiting costs, so recruiters cost 25% of the person's first year's salary, right? So if you have somebody, let's say, making $100,000 a year, a recruiter is gonna take $25,000. 25 grand to put an ass in a seat. Never doubt your ass is valuable. Your ass may not be pretty, but it is valuable, right? It's 25 grand, let's say, just to put an ass in a seat. And then it takes all the time to get them onboarded and get them fully up to speed. And then with that, remember, they're also bringing the rest of their team down, right? Every time a team member has to explain something, every time somebody has to audit and verify the person is doing things properly, not only are they taking up money, but it's actually bringing the performance of the rest of the team down, right? So you got all of that. So if you have to onboard new employees, I mean, the actual hit to a company literally might be hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally, especially if you're a technical employee, right? And so if you break your employees, one, you're going in, you're eliminating God knows how many employees just because you got to get rid of employees. So you might be getting rid of employees that you actually need. The employees that you keep, you're breaking them. And so they're going to become damn near worthless. And then the thing is, well, if they become damn near worthless, well, we'll just fire them and bring new people in. Well, then you bring those new people in, and like each one of those new people is going to cost you 150 grand or more. This is just not the way to do things. This is just the idiocy. You know, it's interesting too, like with the whole thing we talk about company culture. What happens when your management? What happens when your managers have a shit company culture? So, anywho, that's what's going on. That is what's going on in the world of AT&T. What do you think about this? What do you think about AT&T's mandatory return to office policy with a tracking system that leaves just a wee bit to be desired? What do you think about this? What do you think about all these alpha dog tech CEOs trying to tell the employees what's what? Do you think that shit's actually gonna work? Oh, golly. Anyways, I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be an alpha dog and do it in the comment section. Do remember SiliconDojo.com is alive. I'm going to Durham tomorrow to lock down a place for training. So we're going to start having in-person tech education classes in Durham, North Carolina. We're going to be doing AI and SQL and Linux and all kinds of different things. Those will all be free to the end user, right? Basically come in and learn. So I'm solidifying that tomorrow in Durham. Our first classes in Durham will be in a number of weeks. We're also going to have classes again here in Asheville, North Carolina. And we also do things like fireside chats using Zoom and all that kind of stuff. So go to SiliconDojo.com and sign up if you're interested in that. And with that, see y'all later.